If you are an American and you are thinking about dating a Cuban, stop for a second, because what might begin as one of the most exciting, passionate romances of your life can quickly become one of the most complicated cultural storms you will ever experience. Welcome to Cultural Clashes, the channel where we reveal the truth about what happens when love crosses borders. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment and share this video. Because after hearing this story, you'll want to tell us, could you survive dating a Cuban? At first glance, Cubans are magnetic. They are famous for their charisma, their rhythm, their warmth, and their passion for life. Cuban women in particular carry a confidence, elegance, and fire that many American men find irresistible. For an American, meeting a Cuban feels like stepping into a whirlwind of energy, laughter, and affection. But beneath the charm lies a culture shaped by history, hardship, politics, and tradition that often collides head-on with American values of independence, equality, and stability. Let's imagine a couple. Anthony, a 32-year-old American from New York, travels to Havana and meets Daniela, a 26-year-old Cuban woman. From the first moment, Anthony is hooked. Daniela is radiant, playful, and magnetic. She dances with fire, speaks with confidence, and makes him feel like he is the only man in the room. Daniela, in turn, is fascinated by Anthony's openness, his optimism, and his easy American style. Their chemistry is undeniable. At first, every moment feels like magic. But soon, reality arrives, and with it, the cultural clash. The first clash comes from family involvement. In America, relationships are mostly private, built between two individuals. In Cuba, family is everything. Daniela expects Anthony to spend time not only with her parents, but also with grandparents, cousins, aunts, and uncles. Family gatherings are constant, and family opinions matter deeply. At first, Anthony enjoys the warmth, but soon he feels suffocated. He wants private time, quiet weekends, and independence. Daniela sees his resistance as selfishness. For her, family is not an option, it is identity. For him, it feels like intrusion. Jealousy is another battlefield. Cubans are famously passionate, and with passion comes possessiveness. Daniela expects Anthony to show protectiveness, to get jealous when other men look at her. For her, jealousy proves devotion. Anthony, raised in a culture where jealousy is seen as insecurity, stays calm. He trusts her. But Daniela interprets his calmness as indifference. The more he stays relaxed, the more she feels unloved. The more she demands, the more he feels suffocated. Gender roles also clash. Daniela admires Anthony's kindness, but she expects him to lead, to pay for dates, and to prove his seriousness by providing. In her culture, a man's generosity is proof of love. Anthony, who believes in equality and splitting responsibilities, struggles to understand. When he suggests sharing expenses, she feels insulted. What he calls fairness, she calls weakness. What she calls devotion, he calls control. Politics create deeper tension. Cuba's history of communism, restrictions, and survival has shaped its people. Daniela grew up in a system where scarcity, control, and resilience were part of daily life. Anthony, who takes freedom and abundance for granted, cannot fully understand. When he makes casual jokes about politics, Daniela feels uncomfortable. For her, politics is not a laughing matter, it is survival. For him, politics is debate. His casualness feels ignorant. Her seriousness feels heavy. Economic struggles also shape expectations. Daniela comes from a world where resources are scarce, opportunities are limited, and money is often shared among family. She expects Anthony to help, not only with her, but sometimes with her relatives. Anthony, shocked, resists. He believes relationships should be about two people, not about supporting extended families. For her, refusing is selfish. For him, being asked feels unfair. Religion and tradition add another layer. While Cuba is diverse, Catholicism, Santeria, and other beliefs all coexist, faith and ritual remain strong. Daniela expects Anthony to respect religious practices, holidays, and ceremonies. Anthony, who is more secular, struggles to connect. When he resists, she feels disrespected. For her, tradition is identity. For him, tradition is optional. Social life is another clash. Cubans love music, dancing, and community. Daniela expects Anthony to go out often, to dance, to socialize, and to embrace the rhythm of life. At first, he enjoys it, but soon he feels exhausted. He wants quiet nights, privacy, and rest. For Daniela, staying home feels boring, even disrespectful. For Anthony, constant parties feel draining. What she calls life, he calls chaos. Communication styles highlight differences. Daniela is expressive, fiery, and emotional. When she's upset, she raises her voice, demands attention, and fights passionately. For her, arguing is proof of love. If you don't fight, you don't care. Anthony, who prefers calm discussions, feels attacked. His calmness makes her feel ignored. Her intensity makes him feel overwhelmed. What he calls respect, she calls distance. Even daily habits create friction. Anthony wastes food, spends casually, and treats resources lightly. Daniela, raised in a society where scarcity was common, is shocked. For her, waste is disrespectful. For him, it is nothing. What he calls comfort, she calls irresponsibility. Over time, the differences grow heavier. Anthony feels suffocated by Daniela's expectations, family involvement, jealousy, financial responsibility, and social demands. Daniela feels neglected by his independence, his calmness, and his lack of intensity. What once felt like attraction now feels like conflict. This is why so many Americans are shocked when dating Cubans. At first, the beauty, the passion, the warmth, and the energy are irresistible. But soon, Americans discover that Cuban love is not casual or light. It is fiery, demanding, and consuming. And this is only the beginning. Because as the relationship deepens, the weight of family, tradition, and passion only grows stronger. What once felt like love begins to feel like a storm. Stay tuned, because in the next part, we will explore how these cultural clashes explode when Americans and Cubans try to build a long-term future together, and why many of these romances burn bright but burn out fast. As weeks turn into months, Anthony and Daniela's relationship begins to lose its sparkle. What once felt like irresistible passion now feels like a daily struggle. Anthony still admires Daniela's fire, her beauty, and her energy, but he feels trapped under the weight of expectations. Daniela still values Anthony's optimism and independence, but she feels disappointed by his lack of intensity and his reluctance to meet her halfway. The first major clash becomes marriage and commitment. In Cuba, serious relationships are expected to move toward marriage more quickly than in the US. Daniela's family begins asking about Anthony's intentions. Her parents want to know if he plans to settle down, whether he will provide for her, and how serious he really is. Anthony is shocked by the pressure. For him, love should grow naturally without deadlines. For Daniela, waiting too long feels like wasting time. What he calls freedom, she calls irresponsibility. Family obligations grow heavier. Daniela's relatives expect Anthony not just to care for her, but to show loyalty to the family. When her cousin needs help, she hints that Anthony should contribute. When her parents struggle, she expects him to step in. Anthony, who believes relationships should be about two people, feels overwhelmed. He resists. Daniela sees his resistance as selfishness. For her, love includes family. For him, love should be private. Jealousy becomes toxic. Daniela grows suspicious of Anthony's female friends, his casual conversations, even his social media posts. She wants constant proof of loyalty. Anthony insists that trust should be enough. The more he resists, the more she accuses. The more she demands, the more he withdraws. What she calls passion, he calls control. What he calls trust, she calls carelessness. Politics and worldview create deeper cracks. Anthony, raised with American freedom, speaks openly about politics and laughs at ideologies. Daniela, raised in a society where politics shape survival, feels uncomfortable. When he jokes about communism or scarcity, she feels insulted. For him, politics is debate. For her, politics is identity. His casualness feels disrespectful. Her seriousness feels suffocating. Economic struggles define more of their relationship than Anthony expected. Daniela, shaped by scarcity, expects financial stability and generosity. Anthony, who believes in equality, feels exploited when she suggests that he should contribute to her family. Daniela sees his refusal as selfishness. He sees her expectations as opportunism. Both feel betrayed. Social life drains him. Daniela thrives on parties, gatherings, music, and dance. She expects Anthony to join her every weekend. At first, he enjoys it, but soon he feels exhausted. He wants peace, privacy, and time alone. For her, staying home feels empty. For him, constant outings feel draining. Their joy is incompatible. Gender roles clash harder. Daniela wants Anthony to be protective, decisive, and financially stable. Anthony wants equality, partnership, and balance. She interprets his independence as weakness. He interprets her expectations as control. The more he resists, the more she insists. Even arguments highlight their differences. Daniela fights passionately, with raised voices and emotional intensity. Anthony prefers calm discussions. His silence makes her feel ignored. Her fire makes him feel attacked. What she calls love, he calls chaos. Daily habits widen the gap. Anthony wastes food, spends without thinking, and lives casually. Daniela, raised in a culture of scarcity, sees his habits as disrespectful. He sees her criticism as nagging. What he calls freedom, she calls irresponsibility. As time passes, the weight of these clashes becomes unbearable. Anthony feels suffocated by Daniela's expectations, family involvement, financial responsibility, jealousy, and intensity. Daniela feels unloved by Anthony's calmness, his independence, and his refusal to embrace her culture fully. What once felt like love now feels like conflict. This is the truth many Americans face when dating Cubans. At first, the passion, the beauty, and the warmth feel irresistible. But soon, they discover that Cuban love is not casual. It is heavy, fiery, and demanding. Americans see love as freedom. Cubans see love as loyalty, sacrifice, and intensity. Both are valid, but together they clash. Does this mean it is impossible? Not always. Some couples succeed. Some Americans adapt, embracing Cuban family life, passion, and traditions. Some Cubans adjust, accepting independence, freedom, and equality. But these cases are rare. Most relationships collapse not because of lack of love, but because love alone cannot bridge such vast cultural divides. So, should Americans date Cubans? Only if they are ready to trade independence for family obligations, calmness for intensity, and equality for tradition. Only if they are ready to handle jealousy, passion, and responsibility in ways they've never faced before. Because dating a Cuban is not just romance, it is stepping into a world where love is fire, family, and loyalty above all else. Unless you are ready to carry that weight, maybe you should think twice before stepping into it. So what do you think? Would you survive dating a Cuban, or would the family expectations, the jealousy, and the intensity break you before love could last? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to Cultural Clashes, and spread this story. Because when cultures collide, love is never simple. It is always a battlefield between worlds.